Paul Carter is needed at checkouts. Customers are waiting. It's Saturday. If he's not here in 5 seconds, he's going to be pushing trolleys all day long.
Trolley duty happened more than once, multiple times actually. It's not that I didn't like being on the till, I just wanted to be on the shop floor socialising. But that's not what I was paid to do. Sorry, customers. I always served with a smile when I wasn't being a moody teenager. What did pushing trolleys for 10 hours around a car park teach me? Keep listening to find out. Welcome to the first Watching, Working, Living podcast. I am your presenter, Paul Carter. This episode explores how our weekend and summer jobs as teenagers prepared us for the world of work. That's right, I'm 45, and when I was growing up, nearly every teenager studied and worked. I left school and worked. I still see young people working today, but it's not the same. The Daily Telegraph article, The Death of the Saturday Job, published in December 2024, caught my eye. It stated,
"The days of teenagers working during their weekends and getting a summer job in the holidays are gone. The proportion of employed 16 and 17-year-olds who are also in full-time education is at its lowest level in a decade, at just over 1 in 5 between July and September this year."
1 in 5? Maybe 4 took the summer off and didn't tell their mate? Hang on, this isn't a therapy session. I am combining hard news with witty commentary to announce myself as an insightful storyteller in a saturated podcast market. I find the teenage years fascinating, so much drama, everything feels magnified. Important, the best day ever, the worst day ever, cinematic, the songs are all about you. Yay, I'm popular, everyone hates me. I don't want to wait for our lives to be over. I want to know right now, what will it be? Will it be yes or sorry? What is it about those teenage years? When I secured my weekend job, my dad lost his permanent job. College was so much better than school, but teenage years are tough. My weekend job gave me money, friends and stability. It made being in the teenage bubble more fun, bearable. Whatever happened outside work, I still had my job and the connections I made there. When you have a weekend job, you realise how long the working day is, how mundane life is. You deal with the boredom, discover who you are. And I wouldn't change a thing. You are part of something bigger, a step into adulthood. The reasons for the decline in teenagers earning and learning while in full-time education have been debated for the past 10 years. The changing patterns of labour market demands, young people focusing on their studies, timetabling clashes between colleges and employers, part-time jobs attracting wider demographics. Businesses are adapting to online shopping and delivery services, leading to fewer opportunities for young people to find work in traditional retail settings.
Hang on, how can school and college timetabling affect weekend working?
That is such a good question, Ada, my multilingual AI assistant. She will join me in these podcasts. Saturday job is a catch-all term for students who combine study and work, earning and learning. When I was younger, I worked Friday and the weekends. Some teenagers may just work weekday evenings or different days over the week, but it'll be known as Saturday job or weekend working. The rise in employers' national insurance contributions, effectively a payroll tax, means it costs more to hire staff. So can you afford to hire teenagers? I'm not the first person to investigate this topic, which sees umpteen posts from people reminiscing about their teenage jobs and coming up with theories about the decline. Temporary contracts, 0 hours contracts, what employers can offer versus what teenagers want and vice versa. Mental health, anxiety. If parents pay for your lifestyle, why work? The death of the high street, the lust for life, and not to spend weekends working when you'll have to spend most of your lives working. But if you don't work now, then when? If you don't work as a teenager, how will you develop the skills and workplace maturity needed to make that jump from education to employment, to embark on your careers? Part-time jobs, weekend jobs, they can teach important skills about diligence, time management and leadership. And doing something you don't want to do because you need money to pay for your lifestyle. Is it good or bad that more teenagers aren't working? I wonder what customers would say. The workplace cannot be an extension of teenage strops and attitude. If only adults remembered that. I loved working through school and college and regret not working when I was at university. Working when you are a teenager is a good thing to do, if you can find the right job for you. The HR trade body, the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, CIPD for short, published a report on the changing face of the youth labour market. It found that since 1997 there has been a significant long-term decline in the number of full-time students aged 16 to 24 who are both earning and learning, especially among 16 to 17-year-olds, dropping from a peak of 42% in 1997 to just 20% in 2024. Can you picture that graph in your mind? You should see the demand for generative AI skills graph. It looks like a fell running map going up and up. As a teenager, a job gets you out of your bedroom into society. Actually, the same for adults. Doing something new, it's all about experience, right? Says me with my 1B and 4 Cs in GCSEs, a D in media studies and a GNVQ in business studies at college. Maybe I should have studied more. We have to keep traditions alive, like it was in my day. The 90s, Dazed and Confused, Cool Britannia, Choose Work, Choose Life. Now, it's get Britain working, keep Britain working, give young people a future. To set the scene, let's hear about people's jobs when they were young, earning enough money to buy overpriced clothes, a little independence from your parents, hitting the pubs, the clubs, saving up for your first car or university before the reality of life bites. Or maybe you already felt the bite of life at a young age, working to contribute to your family's bills and income to pay for university. We work for different reasons while navigating the challenges of adolescence.
I started working weekends and holidays age 14 in the family bakery. It was great and really helped me with mental arithmetic, especially each time the prices would rise. As a student, I worked in a pub. I adored that job, sociable and fun. I benefited from my honed mental arithmetic skills. I hated smelling of beer and fags though.
The very best job title I had was International Courier Dispatch Clerk for a marketing research company. I was simply employed to type out address labels and stick them to parcels containing questionnaires to be posted globally.
One of the big things for me about getting weekend jobs was that I was at an independent school a long bus ride from home. While the school community was quite diverse, I largely only mixed with people from my own kind of background, as all my sports and clubs were school-based. We were not a wealthy family by any means, especially after school fees paid, but it was an eye-opener to be around people who lacked the privileges I had. I think I developed a sense of empathy and understood the value of education and opportunity a lot more.
I had 3 jobs before I joined the army. I worked at W.H. Smith for 1 summer. I enjoyed the work and the people and the customers. It wasn't difficult, although my abiding memory is of challenging a customer on their credit card signature only for them to produce their police warrant card to prove their signature. I still made them do it again.
My Sunday job was working at my local riding stables where I learnt to ride. I volunteered when I wasn't told to work officially, and then as soon as I turned 16 my boss offered me a job. I was mucking out stables, following feed schedules, grooming, tacking up and helping out with lessons. Then I began teaching beginners lessons as well.
Now let's hear from Stephen Jackson, an HR consultant. What were your weekend jobs as a teenager and what did you learn?
I first started working round about the age of 13. I was working on a building site and I did this during the various school holidays and occasionally at a weekend. The various thing it taught me was, number one, I don't have the memory to recall the 20 different varieties of tea that people used to send me away for several times a day. I did enjoy it, but I do recall vividly still ripping up a floor with a pickaxe, a concrete floor with a pickaxe, and doing that for a week. And my main lesson from that was my future would be in an office. I enjoyed it, but it was incredibly hard work, but it was not the life that I wanted.
And why is it vital that young people know the benefits of part-time work?
I think the main benefits of working part-time is it allows that transition that is significant going from school, college, whatever it is, to the world of work, which is completely different to what most young people have experienced. And it allows that smooth transition. And ultimately, many of the weekend jobs, it's not that fundamental whether you last 6 months, 12 months, or however long it is. So it gives you lots of options for the future.
In your experience, are young people prepared for the challenges of full-time work?
I suspect most young people are not prepared for the challenges of full-time work. We could probably go back thousands of years and it would still be the same. The routine and the structures and the social norms within education are going to be completely different. Your expectations, not least, you don't get as many holidays. And that transition is significant. I know a lot of organisations put a lot of effort into trying to smooth that out, but nonetheless, it is a fundamental shift in the way that young people behave and are expected to behave in the future compared to the past.
Now that I'm in my 40s, I like to read the Financial Times. I should have studied economics when I was at sixth form college, but I always wanted to be a writer. I'm not sure how economics would have stopped me from doing that, but my GCSEs weren't good enough, so I couldn't. My work experience was at the Surrey Advertiser, where the journalist told me not to study journalism if I wanted to be a journalist, but I still studied journalism at university. I've never been a journalist, and I studied a master's in screenwriting, and I've never been a screenwriter. But enough about me. When you copy and paste the Financial Times well-written articles, you get a copyright warning. I am not here to steal. I am here to attribute and explore. When talking about weekend jobs, it's easy to make it a middle-class problem. Will teenagers who do not have to work focus on their studies or get a weekend job to earn some money? It's a dilemma for them, and that should not be undermined or underestimated. Weekend jobs for teenagers is a gateway to other social and economic challenges, like the young people not in education, employment or training, NEET for short. The Financial Times reported,
Young people who came of age during the COVID-19 pandemic risk being left on the scrap heap without urgent action to re-engage those who have drifted away from work and education, according to the UK's Employment Minister. The effects of disrupted education and lost opportunities for young people to get their first boss were now visible to work coaches in job centres. This had compounded the effects of the previous decade, which was not a good period for young people, she said, warning of lasting effects on people's prospects if you end up on the scrap heap when you're young.
The article referenced a report by the charity Impetus, which transforms the lives of young people from disadvantaged backgrounds by ensuring they get the right support to succeed in school, work and life. The report found
The worst outcomes were for young people facing what Impetus called triple jeopardy, coming from a disadvantaged background, while also having special educational needs and disabilities, and lacking GCSE-level qualifications. This group is 3 times more likely to be neither earning nor learning than average.
This concerns me, but what can I do? I'm not Stacey Dooley, Roman Kemp, or even Ross Kemp. No one is going to hire me to shoot a hard-hitting documentary about the disparities and differences between privilege, earning and learning, or doing nothing, or wanting to do something, but nowhere to go, nowhere to work. Some will thrive, learn the hard way, or discover the predicament they are in. My research tells me the traditional Saturday job is quite rare now. The informal job market that existed when we were younger is not the same. There are strict limits to how long those under 16 can work, especially during the school term, and businesses are concerned about insurance implications and safeguarding requirements. The increase for employers' national insurance contributions from 13.8% to 15%, and the wage threshold falling from $9,100 per year to $5,000 will disproportionately affect part-time workers, raising the cost of employing a staff member of 15 hours a week by 73%. As I work in HR, I really need to understand what this means. I can't just read a Daily Telegraph article and say out loud what the journalist has written. Actually, I can. Bosses are warned that the changes I just spoke about will force them to hire fewer staff and cut down their hours. A recent survey by the Bank of England found that more than half of businesses are expected to raise prices in response to the rise in national insurance contributions. The government launched Youth Guarantee Trailblazers to match young people to job or training opportunities. I am a fan of this idea. It is expensive to raise teenagers. If they can work, they can help family finances. How much do teenagers have to get paid to get out of bed on the weekend or work on a school night? Babysitting, dog walking, an online jobs market for young people that I do not understand, which again is annoying as I work in HR. The Future of Jobs report states there remains a risk that technological development will be focused on replacing human work, which could increase inequality and unemployment. Maybe teenagers can boost their employment prospects by plugging themselves into their hardware, but being too connected with the online world is not good either. You need to interact with the world. If you have to work, whatever your age. Let's hear from two of my contributors, HR consultant Stephen Jackson, whose voice you heard earlier, and Stephen Collins, who works in the data profession. If young people are focusing on their studies instead of typical Saturday jobs, would this theoretical knowledge be more beneficial for the knowledge economy and specialist roles?
I don't know if there's many young people who carry on their studies at a weekend. Maybe that's just a reflection on me. The advantage of the world of work is that it allows you and forces you in many ways to socialize towards the greater good of something else. So it could be making widgets, could be working for a charity, but you have to work together as a team in order to do that. Focusing on studies sounds good, and probably and possibly for some types of roles, for some types of people, that could be useful. But I think for most of us, learning the basics and foundations of the working routine is possibly more useful in the long run. But of course, for some jobs, some specialist jobs, maybe that extra bit of work done at the weekend is going to be more useful.
Thank you, Stephen Jackson. And now we're going to hear from Stephen Collins. Same first name, different people talking.
What was your weekend job and what did you learn from it?
I worked in Halfords, the car and bike shop, and I started there at 15. I worked for a few hours on a Sunday, and I earned like £2.15 an hour, something like that. And I worked there through up until when I went to university.
Did it improve your self-confidence and interpersonal skills?
I think it must have done. And I mean, the key skills really that I picked from the job, I would say would be teamwork, and developing that kind of work ethic, I guess, of knowing that you've got to go. You can't just phone in sick. You've got to go and do your job. So I think certainly that the work ethic was important, but I think that the teamwork and working with people was definitely like a key thing.
Was your weekend work experience as important as your academic experience when entering and adapting to full-time employment?
They're the same skills, right? It's a different environment potentially, like working in a shop for me versus, my first kind of full-time job being in an office. But still, it's still people at the end of the day. And I think understanding how to work as part of a team and get on with people from different backgrounds or just, different kind of personalities, it's really important.
My turn to ask a question. Are teenagers missing out on positive experiences and life skills if they don't have a job while studying?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously you could get those in maybe different environments. I don't know, perhaps, clubs or other extracurricular activities. But I still think there's something about not just developing those skills, but also kind of understanding that every job has boring bits that you have to get on and do, and also understanding how long it takes to earn money versus how fast it is to spend it. It makes a difference when you're the one that's earned it. It might be a lot if your first full-time job, the first time you're experiencing these things is your first full-time job, and you've got to make a great impression, and you're worried about career progression and all that kind of thing. I think having that kind of, that weekend job, it's a starting point, isn't it? So you start to learn those things maybe when there's a little bit less at stake, and maybe you make mistakes there, but it doesn't matter so much.
So there are advantages and disadvantages, and balance is important to ensure you enjoy your youth.
I mean, maybe there is that point around just time. There's always a trade-off between your leisure time, the demands that kind of education puts on kids, and work. So I think there's value in having a balance of all three. I don't think it would be great if all you did was do your weekend job and do your study, and you forgot to be a child in there. So I think balance is important.
And did you achieve that balance between work and studies?
I don't remember it being an issue, to be honest, which makes me wonder when I look at the amount of homework that my son gets, having just joined secondary, whether maybe the workload on students has changed, because I think it would be a struggle for him to be doing, studying for GCSEs and things, but also holding down a job.
This is definitely a question for me to ask. Can you share your thoughts on how artificial intelligence could affect the future of work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been well talked about, but I think there is a threat, because where AI is likely to make the biggest impact is on entry-level jobs. And so teenagers or people kind of just out of school or college or uni are the most likely to be affected. Now, I think, if traditional sort of weekend jobs and stacking shelves in supermarkets aren't going to go away anytime soon, but I guess the robots will come eventually.
Thank you, Stephen Collings. Your final paragraph got chewed up in the tape deck, but I managed to go deep and salvage what I could. I agree about the risk of a schism between those who learned the ropes of work before AI and those who came after. I'll hand back over to Paul now, my co-presenter on the podcast.
Thank you, Ada, my AI assistant on the podcast. Let's hear more stories from people about their teenage and student jobs, not just from the UK, overseas too. I have an international audience.
I had 3 jobs, 2 evening shifts at a local supermarket, and 1 covering supper at the local chippy. I loved the interaction and the chats, plus I learned I have asbestos fingers, and I still silently judge people when serving chips. My favourite by far was my Saturday market stall job, selling M&S seconds knitwear to local ladies who loved a bargain. It kept me in Morrissey-style cardigans for a year or 2, and really built my confidence in dealing with people. Batting back the bants from the butcher's opposite definitely helped solidify that. On reflection, I've mainly worked in male-dominated industries since, and I do wonder if that early Saturday job was my unofficial induction.
My bar job was a real learning experience. My math skills improved hugely from the mental calculations, and my social skills were greatly improved too, as you can get into some sticky situations when people have alcohol inside them. It also helped me to avoid student debt.
My first job was at R.S. McColl's from the age of 15. I worked every day after school and the weekends. I did this for 10 months before they hired someone else to help out. I absolutely loved that job. I took on the added responsibility of cashing up, paying paper delivery workers, and opening and locking up even from the age of 16. Now, with loan working guidance and I'm sure stricter insurance policies, I wouldn't have been allowed to have that level of responsibility. But I just loved it.
Working at a record shop taught me the importance of a wide scope of knowledge when providing a service or products to meet client needs. A key moment in this was when at 16 an older gentleman came in and taught me about Deutsche Grammophon when he asked for recordings from that label, and I thought it was a band. A lesson in humility, but also in the importance of not just focusing on what you like when providing products and services for others. You are rarely your own target audience. Kitchen jobs taught me the importance of process and the ability to adapt to variations in work tempo, especially on nights when there was a big game on the telly at the bar. You need clear and timely communication and good planning because meat will never defrost as fast as you need it to. I also started to learn the importance of navigating a diverse gamut of personalities in the workplace. Working at the Hill Times paper in Ottawa as a layout designer taught me the importance of effectiveness and efficiency, as well as paying attention to detail, while moving on from mistakes once you had learned from them. It also gave me an appreciation for interdependencies in a process. It was the heyday of print at the time, and we had to be aware of what came before and after you in a process to know what to expect from inputs and what expectations you had to comply with for your outputs so that your contributions would be part of generating the best product possible.
See, not all kids can make pocket money and small fortunes from YouTube videos, apps, stocks and shares. Disconnect from the virtual world to experience the real world.
Actually, Paul, a recent survey by the British Standards Institution indicates that nearly half, 47%, of young people aged 16 to 21 would prefer to grow up in a world without the internet. This highlights a growing unease about the impact of social media and technology on young people's lives. Give young people a chance and they will show you the adults they can become.
And now we can hear from Joe Morgan from the Parenting Network in Portsmouth. Why is it a good idea for teenagers to be earning and learning, to know what it's like to have a job?
You acquire so many skills during the sort of difficulties which come with having a job. So, from going for an interview and having to build up the courage and the self-confidence to do that, to sometimes dealing with a difficult boss, problem solving when you're on the job, all of those things really build a sense of inner resilience and confidence in you, which then set you up for your later jobs and later success. I know, when I was 14, I had 2 different jobs and continued to work through all of my teenage years. And they were absolutely formational and really important for me, I think, in helping me to navigate the world of work later. I know that teenagers are finding it really difficult to find any kind of paid work. I used to run the Portsmouth Youth Cabinet and we did a big project on youth employment and they surveyed loads of local teenagers. And what we found was the vast majority, about 80% of those teenagers, said that they would like and would welcome paid employment, but actually they just weren't finding the opportunities. So I think it's easy for adults to dismiss teenagers and think that they're lazy and they don't want to work. But actually, I think we as adults and employers have a duty to create those opportunities. From my experience and my discussions with teenagers, they want to work, they want to earn money, they want to develop those life skills, and so we really need to sort this out.
If UK teenagers do not earn money from jobs, the cost to their parents is primarily reflected in increased spending on essentials like clothing, food, and social activities, as well as potential expenses for hobbies, transportation, and pocket money. My AI research indicates that raising a child to age 18 costs £260,000 for a couple and £290,000 for a lone parent.
I was watching Newsnight on BBC where they were discussing the welfare bill and how to get economically inactive people back into work. The economist Andy Haldane was saying there are still plenty of jobs out there, but vacancies have fallen and unemployment is increasing. The presenter, Victoria Derbyshire, said 1 in 8 young people have made no contact with the jobs market and not even in training. When I started this podcast, it was only 1 in 5 16 and 17-year-olds who were earning and learning. Things get worse quickly when you are young. Andy Haldane said it was catastrophic and the UK has to get work back into the bloodstream of pupils from age 14 onwards. He says we have singly failed to do that and are now counting the cost. While employment levels for 16 to 18-year-olds is going down, there are rising enjoyment levels in reading for 16 to 18-year-olds, with 41% saying they read for pleasure. Maybe they will read my blogs on this topic. Personally, I think employers' emerging talent programs should recognise extracurricular activities and personality traits to help match people to careers, professions and cultures. You need dreamers as much as you need A-star academics. After your week of work experience, or GCSEs, you should be getting work into your bloodstream. But let's not forget that this group of 16 to 18-year-olds grew up during the pandemic. I was listening to the CIPD podcast interview with the UK Employment Minister, where she responded to the feedback from employers that young workers lacked social skills, saying that young people had to give up their social life to keep us safe, which affected their development. She said the whole country owes this generation more attention and a chance in life to help bridge that gap between what employers need from young people and where young people are now. As the CIPD presenter said, it's easy to always think that the next generation is going to be the problem, when they tend to be the solution. Let's hear from Catherine Hall, aka the Career Owl, who gives up her time to help school students prepare for the world of work.
Through the Careers and Enterprise Company, I work as a volunteer enterprise advisor with 2 secondary schools in Tamworth. My job is to help connect what students are learning in school with what's really happening out there in the world of work. I bring in my own experience and contacts from business, and I help design career activities that are student-led and relevant. It's not just about ticking a box, it's about helping young people see what's possible and giving them the confidence to imagine different futures for themselves. It's something I really believe in, and it complements the work I do as the Career Owl perfectly. Whether someone's 16 or 46, I love helping people see their potential and take the next step with purpose.
How are today's school leavers different to your generation?
They're much more digitally savvy for sure. They've grown up online, so they're great at using tech and finding information. But sometimes what's missing is that in-person confidence, those soft skills like communication, teamwork, resilience, the kind of things you only really learn through doing. There's also more pressure on them to have a plan early on, whereas we only just figured it out as we went. That's why exposure to the workplace and chances to explore different paths is so important. It gives them room to try, learn and adjust without fear of getting it wrong.
Why do you think work experience is as important as academic success?
Because work experience shows you how the real world works. Academic results matter, of course, they open doors, but work experience gives you the confidence and know-how to work through the doors and hold your own. My school work experience included a week at Yorkshire Bank's regional office and another at Good Hope Hospital. I got to see everything from filing and note collection to working on wards and even shadowing in A&E. It showed me just how many people are involved behind the scenes and how every role has value. It also taught me how to interact with people in different roles, how to adapt and how to stay calm in new situations. And that kind of learning really stays with you.
Thank you, Catherine, for everything you are doing to help young people boost their employability. Not all reflections on teenage jobs, way back when and now, are positive. Sadly, this does not surprise me.
Quite honestly, all I remember from my first jobs were being paid buttons and treated very poorly. Work experience as a teen was very questionable and not a safe space for a young person. After my first initial taste of work, I got a weekend job in a bakery. The pay was horrendous and was spoken to awfully, despite working my ass off. After that I got an apprentice admin job in a law firm, again, paid horrendously but learnt a lot about myself and my work ethic. All my early working experiences taught me a few things, mainly that I have a very good work ethic and that I learn by doing. I am not an academic. Give me a challenge or a task and I will figure it out.
Something that has always stayed with me from those years is the low pay across all my early jobs. There was, and still is, an assumption that young adults are financially supported by their parents. At the time, both the Student Loans Company and the Education Maintenance Allowance assessed eligibility based on parental income, which didn't reflect my situation at all. I found it frustrating that I was paid less purely because of my age, even though I was working just as hard, and in many ways needed the money more. It saddens me that this remains the case today. It has made me very sensitive to the unfairness of age-related pay differences.
As a parent of 3 teenagers with current weekend jobs, I am proud of their work ethic. What I am not proud of is the way employers treat these young workers. With 2 notable exceptions, all 3 of my children have been employed illegally in weekend, evening, and summer jobs. Minimum wage, without contracts, on 0 hours, had last-minute shift cancellations, penalties for not being available at 10 minutes notice. One child was sacked for not attending work on a Sunday after missing the email sent at 10:30 at night, calling her in for 8 a.m. the following morning after not being needed for 2 weeks. No holiday pay, no tips paid, no safety training, no food hygiene training, no breaks, etc., etc. All 3 of my children now know what a good employer looks like.
If you work somewhere with school, college kids, you might get school and college culture where teenagers behave like teenagers and young adults want to have fun too. Most of it is fun, and young people doing what young people should do, but it can go too far. Maybe you experienced or witnessed it. It happened to your teenage children, or you read about it in the media. The BBC reported more than 400 people came forward over Al Fayed's sexual abuse allegation at Harrods. There was a BBC investigation about McDonald's too, which uncovered widespread issues of sexual harassment, racism, and bullying as workers as young as 17 spoke out against the chain. Of more than 100 allegations from employees that opened up to the BBC about their experiences, 31 related to sexual assault, 78 related to sexual harassment, 18 related to racism, and 6 allegations of homophobia were made. On the McDonald's story, Hybrid magazine wrote, "This expose undoubtedly raises broader concerns about workplace culture and employee safety within the fast food and hospitality industry as a whole." I don't know everything about HR, but I know that should not happen. We have to make work safe for everyone, keeping teenagers safe so they can learn what is right and what is wrong at work. CIPD report on the youth labour market trends, which states that while specialised skills and knowledge will remain crucial for most occupations, it's the transferable, essential employment skills that will be most sought after across the job market over the next 10 years. Essential skills being communication, collaboration, problem solving, organising and planning, creative thinking, and gathering, processing, and applying information. Sounds a lot like the essential skills now. The CIPD report says that young people often lack these social, collaborative, critical thinking skills when entering the labour market, and the decline in earning and learning that has occurred over the last few decades will have likely exacerbated this challenge. This highlights the critical importance of building these skill sets while in the education system and continuing to develop them while in the workplace. I wonder what young people will think of me when they join the multi-generational workplace and see me as a 50-something man, trying to do my best while holding on until retirement.
A lot has changed since you started recording this podcast. The government has said it will extend the right to vote to 16-year-olds in time for the next general election. UK vacancies fell for the 5th consecutive month in June and wage growth slowed, in the latest sign that the government's tax rises, a higher minimum wage and the US trade war are hitting the jobs market. And UK graduates are facing worst job market since 2018 amid rise of AI. New entrants like graduates face a challenging time in securing a first rung on the ladder. Work experience is important.
Can you confirm your sources for those figures?
All 150 of them. It takes me 5 seconds to do my research. Some of the teenagers you're talking about will be middle-aged by the time you finish scribbling what you hear on the television and radio.
Work is hard, and while our attention spans are declining, we still care about what we do and are learning how to get along with AI. Parents I speak to ask, how do I teach my children the value of money, that you can't get everything you want and our incomes don't stretch as far as you think they do? We have to work for a living, and one day, unless you are lucky or unemployable, so will you. I want to look at workplace mentality in a world without work, where global citizenship can become a civic duty, a different type of job, breaking traditions to develop a more flexible and acceptable approach to work, career ladders, and giving something back to get money in your pocket. If high streets are about the experience, what can we do to make them somewhere you want to visit? There are many skills you can learn where teenagers go to interact with each other and their community rather than have misconceptions or fear each other. Image is everything when you are younger. How can having a job or civic duty be good for your reputation, who you are, and how you feel about yourself? Can career paths start at school, college, in our communities to empower people to develop mentally, physically, spiritually, sexually, academically, to become key considerations of political, economic, sociological, technological, legal, and environmental analysis? There is more to you than who you were at school. Having a job gives you self-respect, makes it easier to get your next job, shows you what you are good at and what you don't want to do for a living. You have to grow up without forgetting everything you learned as a teenager. You are the future. Use your potential to be the person you want to be, to support national and global growth. And your homework is, how are you going to solve the UK productivity gap? Thank you for listening to the first Watching, Working, Living podcast. If you would like to hire me and Ada Multilingual, my AI superstar assistant, drop me a line. The next podcast will be on sexual harassment in the workplace, and if people are scared to ask a colleague out on a date. If you would like to contribute, just let me know. Thank you for listening and goodbye.